Welcome to Season. I'm Chef Club. Marisol Castro is out today, so you may not hear clinking glasses and champagne flutes in the studio, but we're still going to have a great time, I promise. And we're going to have some great guests on today. We're talking all about bubblies, whether it's champagne, whether it's Prosecco, whether it's Cava. We're going to get the skinny and the lowdown and geek out on all of these things. It's one of my favorite things to talk about. I love bubblies. As a matter of fact, I'm in the studio right now at Gateway College, and I'm having a delicious champagne cocktail. Now, what's a champagne cocktail? Very, very traditional. One of the oldest cocktails, actually, dating back to the 1800s, at least the mid-1800s. I'm having one of these right now. Let me tell you how to make this drink. One of my favorite drinks, just to get us started. I want to get us started on the right foot as we get ready to ring in the new year. So get a sugar cube. Just, the old-fashioned sugar cubes you might put in a coffee or a tea. Put it into a spoon or a smaller cup. Drip a few drops of bitters on top of it. Let those bitters kind of start to soak into that sugar cube. Put the sugar cube inside of your glass. You can use a cognac or a brandy and put maybe, a quarter of an ounce into it. I like to use a little Grand Marnier in mine and then top it off with a champagne or a bubbly or a Prosecco. It is a fantastic drink, and I'm having some right now. And while I'm not going to be able to clink glasses to Marisol because she's not here, I can do it with you guys. So there we go. Looking forward to it. It's going to be a lot of fun, you guys. I can't wait to talk more about these sparklers and bubbles, some of my favorite stuff. And I got some great guests to talk about it with this week. Zachary Sussman is a Brooklyn-based wine writer. He has appeared in Savor, Food and Wine, and he's a regular contributor to Punch, the James Beard award-winning website devoted to drinks. He's the author of The Essential Wine Book and his latest book, Sparkling Wine for Modern Times, a drinker's guide to the freewheeling world of bubbles. Zachary, welcome to Seasoned.
Thank you so much for having me, Chef.
We're going to have a lot of fun. And our other guest today is Chelsea Solkowski. Chelsea is the bar manager and bartender at the Charles in Old Wethersfield. Manager and bartender are two separate skills, so we want to make sure she gets credit for both. Chelsea, welcome to Seasoned, and Happy New Year.
Hey, Happy New Year. Thanks for having me.
Of course. And, of course, our third guest is always you. People checking out this show. We're very excited to talk to you. Give us a call if there's a question you want to talk about sparklers, you want to talk about a great recommendation for a drink to drink for the new year, you want to see what our guest recommendations would be, give us a call. 203-776-9677 is the number to call to talk to us live on the air. We want to hear from you, so give us a shout. All right, let's get this whole thing started right away, Zachary. I just want to break down what exactly is sparkling wine and how is it made?
Sure. Well, as the name suggests, sparkling wine is wine that has bubbles in it, right? So the question is, how do those bubbles get there? And, there are like several different techniques and methods, all of which yield kind of different results stylistically. But the main kind of principle is that when you're making a sparkling wine, you want to, at some point, trap the gas that's released as a natural byproduct of fermentation, either in the bottle itself or in the tank. And so the pressure builds up and eventually you have a sparkling wine.
But a lot of people also confuse it and call champagne or call everything champagne. But just because it's sparkling doesn't necessarily mean it's champagne.
No, I think we've all been guilty of that, right? Just using champagne to delineate the whole category. It's kind of been synonymous with sparkling wine forever. But the truth is that sparkling wine comes from all over the world. It is a immensely diverse category made from all these different types of grapes from many, many different regions. Like I think it's really as diverse and robust as the entire world of wine itself.
I mean, champagne, I remember from culinary school, taking the wines class there. That was the bane of my existence at the time because it's so hard and so much information. But, champagne has to come from champagne or be made in method champenois, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And the champenois, the champagne producers are very proprietary over that point. Like the people have gotten sued for calling it champagne when it's not champagne. But yeah, so Champagne, it's France's northernmost wine region outside the city of Reims, and it basically provides like perfect conditions for making these beautiful high acid sparkling wines. And you can't call it champagne if it doesn't come from that specific region of France.
I mean, people get serious about that too, don't they? They're like, no, this is cava. It's not champagne. And you're like, oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, there's always that wine snob at the party who's going to make a point of correcting you when you make that mistake, for sure.
I get surrounded by them constantly. Well, Chelsea, I want to ask you, when you're at the bar and you're working in the restaurant, do people specify a difference?
I guess it comes with everything. Like there's always going to be a level of knowledge from your consumer. Some people know exactly what they're ordering. And a lot of people will ask for Prosecco and or champagne, and they think champagne's Prosecco, vice versa. They just want a celebratory beverage.
Right. Well, I'm glad you said celebratory there because, Zachary, I want to ask you, what is it that you think, why do we think of champagne as such a celebratory thing?
Well, I guess there's like two different reasons. One is just it's so much fun to drink, right? Like there's just something about you hear that pop of the cork, the bubbles. It just gets you in the spirit to celebrate. But it's not really a coincidence either. Like historically, champagne, the large champagne houses, they started off basically marketing champagne that way. They're masterful self-promoters. And so from the very start, their idea was to market champagne as this special luxury product, and it stuck. It was really, really successful.
I mean, it's one of those things I think like when you have like a great meal, it affects all your senses. When you hear that champagne cork pop, we all know that something fun is about to happen. Maybe it's a mental thing.
I think it's the happiest sound in the world, personally.
I love it. Well, I want to hear what everybody else thinks about this, too. Give us a call, 203-776-9677's number to call. I want to hear how you feel when you hear a popping of a cork, because I know it makes me super happy. I know I popped the cork here in the studio to make our tester of these champagne cocktails, and everybody from the other studio came running in here, so it definitely makes everyone happy for sure. So give us a call, 203-776-9677. So people who aren't in the wine world, Zachary, like when you find something like a Prosecco or a Cava or, the names, how are the names so different? Or, a Blanc de Blanc or something like that.
Well, I'm trying to understand your question. What do you mean? How are those
the
three
difference
different
between
wines different?
Sure, the difference of like a Prosecco to a Cava or the difference from like Prosecco to like a sparkling white, is there a difference? Are they all the same or is it just where they come from?
So yeah, this is it gets kind of complicated, but basically, they're from two completely different parts of the world, right? Cava is from Spain, from the region of Catalonia. Prosecco is from northeastern Italy, the area of the Veneto, like basically 45 minutes drive up from Venice. So there are different regions. They're made using totally different grapes. And also the method of production that goes into their creation is different. Cava is made in the same method as champagne. Prosecco is made using the Charmat method. So those two different methods also give really different stylistic results. And it just goes to show, the diversity that's in this category, because they're wines they're both sparkling, but that's about, where the similarity ends.
I think in the book you said in 2013, after several years of record-breaking sales, Prosecco actually surpassed Champagne as the best-selling sparkling wine in the world. It makes sense to me. I find myself buying Prosecco all the time now.
Yeah, it's enormously popular. In fact, they had to actually expand the allowed official production zone for Prosecco just to keep up with the demand, because people just want Prosecco. They want their inexpensive bubbles, and the stuff's delicious. It makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's cheaper. It doesn't it doesn't cost as much money, and you can get it and do something fun with it like we have. You can actually just make a cocktail with it, right, Chelsea? I'm guessing you guys use a lot of Prosecco in cocktails as opposed to a champagne.
Absolutely, I had to actually put it on tap. We use so much of it.
Wow,
which is a amazing creation, by the way.
Wow, so you have a Prosecco on tap or a Prosecco cocktail on tap?
I have Prosecco on tap. Simple as that. It never goes flat. You always have endless supply of bubbles.
Wow. I have so many chef questions there that are going to bore everybody, so I won't ask them about how long it lasts and things like that. But what about using that to make cocktails? I mean, are there some great Prosecco cocktails off the top of your head? And is there a difference, you think, from using Prosecco to using a champagne?
There's obviously the basic cocktails that everybody knows of with just bubbles. I mean, like the French 75, which is super classic, Pure Royale, super classic, and even what you're drinking right now, the champagne cocktail. Like all of these are awesome go-tos. I do have a couple drinks on the menu too that include just like a Prosecco float. I feel like that elevates a drink to the next step. So it's going to do so much for your cocktail. It's going to change the whole palate and the viscosity of it, and just how it dries out every drink that you're going to add it to. It's a beautiful thing.
I mean, didn't you have a recipe using like truffle honey and stuff in a cocktail with sparkling wine?
Yeah. It's actually going to be at our New Year's Eve menu.
Nice. That sounds delicious. What's in that? Can you talk us through it?
Yeah, so that one's going to be truffle honey with lavender in it, and that is going to be it's going to be a martini essentially. So that with a little bit of gin, I'm choosing to use High Clear gin. represent the locals. And then there's also going to be lemon juice, and I'm going to top that with a little bit of Prosecco.
You know, Zachary, I love sparkling wine cocktails. I think they're fun. It's a great way to even introduce people who aren't used to it to a great sparkling wine. But, as a wine lover such as yourself, do you hear sparkling wine cocktails and do you just kind of cringe, or are you a fan of them?
Oh my God, I'm a huge fan. I don't cringe at all. I might not pour a really expensive champagne into a Bellini or something like that, but I make sparkling wine cocktails at home all the time. I love them, and my wife loves them.
Nice. Is there a simple one you go to, that somebody at home could make?
Yeah, so I'm a big fan of spritzes. So obviously, the Aperol spritz is a classic, but my favorite kind of take on that is actually a Negroni Spagliato. So basically, it's the same ingredients that you would use in a Negroni, so Campari and sweet vermouth. But instead of the gin, you add some sparkling wine, usually Prosecco. And I think it has a little more savory kind of complexity, a little more bitterness than the Aperol spritz. So that's kind of my go-to.
Yeah, you can get so many great flavors from that stuff, man. And even if you're just a gorilla like me and you want to make something fun, you can do the champagne cocktail I've got here, or just add a little bit of Chambord, a quarter ounce of Chambord to a cocktail. That's a delicious beverage right there, Chelsea. I know, I'm skating on thin ice there. That's not changing the world, but it's tasty. Mm-hmm. So listen, you guys, I want to hear what you got. You want to make a cocktail, you want to call in and tell us a cocktail you like. We'd love to hear from you. Give us a call at 203-776-9677 to share your own easy sparkling cocktail idea. Or maybe you have a special champagne you drink every year and want us to know about it. The number's 203-776-9677. We definitely want to hear from you guys. I'm looking forward to it. It's time to take a quick short break, but when we return, we're going to cover a lot more with our guests, Zachary Sussman and Chelsea Solkowski. Coming up, we'll debunk some of the myths around sparkling wine and get some ideas for festive, alcohol-free sparkling cocktails for the non-drinkers out there. Our number is 203-776-9677. We want to hear from you. Join the conversation. I'm Chef Plum. You listen to Seasoned. We'll be right back. Back to Seasoned. I'm Chef Plum. Marisol Castro is out today, but she'll be back next week. We're celebrating the new year a little bit early by exploring the world of sparkling wine and bubbly drinks. My guests are Zachary Sussman and Chelsea Solkowski. Zachary is the wine writer and author of the new book Sparkling Wines for Modern Times, and Chelsea is the bar manager and bartender. Ready? Oh, that's a terrible drum roll. Sorry, Chelsea. I'm working on it. Winner of Connecticut Restaurants Association's Best New Restaurant Award, The Charles in Old Wethersfield. Chelsea, I got to ask you a question. When you win an award like that, do you see a bump in business? Are people coming in being more excited?
We can't even keep up. It's so busy.
We got to get two
amazing.
taps. We got to get 2 taps of sparkling then, don't we?
We might.
That's right. I want to take a quick call, friends. We've got Roseanne from Waterbury calling in. She's got a great idea with some limoncello. Roseanne, welcome to Seasoned.
Hi, thanks. So I like to take maybe about half and half of limoncello and framboise, a lambic beer, a raspberry framboise, and just put them together and put them over ice. Delicious.
Oh my gosh, that's lemon, raspberry, and alcohol. These are all great things. I love all of this stuff. What a great idea, yeah. Roseanne. Happy New Year to you.
It's delicious. Happy New Year. Thanks.
That's a great idea, too. It's like I was saying, taking a little bit of that Chambord or a little bit of creme de cassis and adding it to a champagne there, Zachary. That's a simple champagne cocktail you can do right there.
Sounds good to me.
So we like to bust a lot of myths on this show. And, I mean, when it comes to bubblies and champagne and sparklings, there's tons of them out there. Zachary, you think maybe you could bust a few of them for us if I ask you?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're right. I think for being one of the most popular wine categories, sparkling wine is really misunderstood. And I think that the biggest myth of all, the meta myth, is that it's somehow not wine per se, that it's this special category of wine that we need to put on a pedestal and just reserve for special occasions. So I think the biggest myth is no, sparkling wine is not just for the anniversaries, Valentine's Day, birthdays. It's something that you should be drinking and can be drinking, enjoying all the time,
right?
Just because. So I think that's the biggest one. And there are many others. I think along with that, we tend to think of it as something that you just use as like a toast or as an aperitif, but sparkling wine is actually an amazing food wine.
For sure.
And really deserves to be on the table. So, those are just two. My book actually has, I think, 7 myths that I try to bust about sparkling wine. So there are definitely more.
Yeah, I think it's great, and just want to, just kind of reiterate that sparkling wine is great for food, man. I tell you what, you eat like a heavy pasta dish or something like that, those bubbles kind of lift that off your palate and, really kind of reset you for another bite. So I couldn't agree more. What about champagne flutes? Do you think they have to be served in champagne flutes?
Absolutely not. So first of all, I'm not like a stemware snob. So, I've definitely been known to just drink the stuff out of like a solo cup at a party and be totally happy. That said, kind of the conventional wisdom is that you would pour it in a flute because it preserves the bubbles. But what you lose out on is being able to smell all of the wine's like underlying flavors and aromas. So sommeliers have started to pour it just into a standard wine glass. And I prefer that. I think it's a better way to actually just, taste the wine and get your nose in there and really get a sense of what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And how about serving it ice cold? I mean, that's a big no-no in my book, but a lot of people think it has to be.
I agree. Yeah, your image of champagne immediately conjures that ice bucket, right? Like they kind of go hand in hand. And obviously you don't want to serve it too warm. But when you serve a good sparkling wine super, super cold, you end up muting all of the flavors and the aromas and the textures. So, you're not really getting the full experience out of it. So my advice is always to take the bottle out of the fridge, maybe, 10 or 15 minutes before you're going to serve it. Don't serve it too cold.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the good stuff is always expensive. I don't think that's entirely true anymore. You can get great bottles in that, $15, $12 range. If you look around, you can find some great stuff.
Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, it's insane. Now more than ever before, the market is just overflowing with really great, affordable, distinctive sparkling wines from all over. We talked about Prosecco and we talked about Cava, which are always great go-tos, but there are so many other, examples. There's great stuff from Portugal. There's great wines from other parts of Spain and France, French Crémant. Like it's just hard to keep track of everything.
Yeah, and the one that always drives me crazy is how people think bubbles are bubbles. That's never true with anything. I mean, bubbles can be different and make a massive difference in the flavor and the feel in your mouth, right?
Yeah, and they're all different. I mean, nobody talks about all white wine being the same. So why would all sparkling wines be the same? They're made from different grapes and different regions. And that's the fun, is discovering the kind of regional personalities of all of these different types of wines.
Well, Zachary, my wife, she is a crazy person when it comes to bubbles in wine. If it's not enough for her, she's like, I don't like it. And I'm like, this is delicious. She's like, it's not enough bubbles in it. She gets crazy about it, man. I don't know. And it has to be super dry and you name it. We'll get into that later. But Chelsea, I want to ask you too, do you have to educate your patrons, often about the nuances of sparkling wine because they're so stuck on some of these myths?
Yeah, so before I had Prosecco and tap, I did offer Cava as our kind of like house bubble.
Right.
And I got so much backlash from it just because of people thinking that it was in some way lesser than what they're familiar with or not exactly the same thing. So it's definitely something that I'm trying to do my best at educating. Cava is just as delicious as Prosecco.
Yeah,
but some people are very stubborn.
Yeah, it helps people to understand just, that just because it says Cava doesn't mean it's not delicious. That's an important thing. We've got Mark in Danbury. Mark, welcome to Seasoned.
Hey, how are you?
Oh, living the dream. Happy New Year to you.
You guys are cinephiles, but I always thought one of the best movies about champagne, or at least enjoying it, was Casablanca, because it seems like between champagne cocktails and Vive Clicquot, there's so much reference to enjoying champagne.
Well, Mark, I'm not sure if you heard the first part of the show, Mark. I'm having a champagne cocktail as we speak currently here in the studio. And listen, I know you're drinking at work, Chef Plum, but I'm telling you right now, it's a sacrifice I'm willing to make for everybody.
And Victor Laszlo, if you watch, and I'm a diehard Casablanca fan.
Amazing.
He orders Cointreau, and then at the next table with someone else, it's a champagne cocktail, and at a third stop, it's another drink. I can't even recall. But while I have you experts on the line, this is the second point, which is totally disparate. And someone told me about this years ago. If you drop a raisin in a flute of champagne, it bounces up in top. I don't know if you've ever done that, and I don't know what the science behind that is.
Well, let's see what Zachary thinks about that. Zachary, a raisin in champagne and it bounces on the top. Have you heard of this?
I actually can corroborate that this is true. I have tried this actually as a kid. But yeah, it creates like this kind of lava lamp-esque effect where the raisins will rise to the top. I always just assumed that it was the carbonation, the effervescence in the wine that is lifting it up, but I don't know. But it is true. I've seen it happen.
Wow, thanks, Mark. That's pretty cool. Can't wait to give that a try. And it's been verified by an expert. And he has a microphone, so he's definitely an expert. That's for sure. Chelsea, what about you? You ever throwing raisins in the Prosecco when it comes out?
I can't say I have.
I'm definitely going to do it tonight, though. I got to find out if that actually works. That's pretty cool. So, Chelsea, not everybody drinks alcohol, but everybody wants to ring in the new year with something celebratory. What do you recommend for people who want something bubbly and festive, but maybe not the alcohol?
So there's so many options right now. Like mocktails are the new thing. I have a whole section on my menu at the Charles for mocktails. Be it if you don't drink or if you're pregnant. There's so many reasons not to imbibe. For example, I have this one drink called Mama Said Mock You Out.
Nice.
And it's it's a take on a non-alcoholic Aperol spritz. So I have non-alcoholic champagne. I have a non-alcoholic orange spirit that kind of mimics the Campari, a little lemon juice, and then I make this just base of a really dense orange peel syrup. So it honestly, if you had a couple drinks, you would be able to tell the difference.
Wow, that sounds pretty cool. I mean, it probably feels like you're having a cocktail then at least, well, not even at least, but just feels like it's probably delicious and you're having a cocktail.
Yeah, nobody knows but you.
Does it look pretty?
It looks just like an Aperol spritz.
Man, that kind of sounds delicious. I'm not sure if I'm going to trade it for my champagne cocktail, but I definitely would have that and the champagne cocktail because, hey, I'm sitting here. Someone's got to do it. Give us a call, 203-776-9677. That's 203-776-9677. We'd love to talk to you about your favorite champagne cocktail, your favorite bubbly, or if you want to bring up a movie like Casablanca, we want to talk about that too, how it fits in cocktails, That's for sure. We've talked a lot about Prosecco, Zachary, and we've mentioned a couple things like Cava and some others, but, Cava is one of Spain's most famous fizzy wines. What do you think we could tell drinkers, or what should they know about Cava?
Yeah, so going off of Chelsea's point, I think that there's this stigma around Cava that it's somehow like down market or, low quality. And there's definitely, a lot of supermarket brands that aren't that great. But Cava is something that I drink at home almost more than any other sparkling wine because I think it just delivers one of the most exceptional values. What you can get for like $15 to $20 is just remarkable. So yeah, it's from Spain. It's from Catalonia, just outside of Barcelona, and it's made in the same method as champagne. So you get some of the similar textures and flavors at a real fraction of the price. But it's really its own unique thing. It's made from its own grapes. It's a little riper. It's like more of a Mediterranean style of sparkling wine. So I think that we should be, drinking it for what it is and not comparing it to what it isn't.
And what a great wine for just any kind of food dish you're making. You can have burgers on the grill. A Cava is fantastic for. You could have a braised short rib, and that Cava is delicious with that too. But those bubbles make such a difference, and the flavor, it's not crazy sweet. It really, really pairs well with food, Zachary.
It is one of my favorite wines to pair with food. And you mentioned burgers. I've spent like probably the past year trying to figure out what the perfect burger wine is, and I've settled on Rosé Cava because it goes with the meat. It has that dark kind of savory quality, but also it pairs really well with like all of the condiments, with the pickles, with the ketchup, whatever you have on there, the cheese. Like it just kind of works better than any other wine that I've ever tried.
Yeah, it really does work fantastic. It's great with cheese too. I think of anything that's heavy or even. I'm trying to think of a food it doesn't really work with. I think it kind of works with everything in my brain. Chelsea, so when people come to the restaurant and, they're ordering food, they're looking for a recommendation, do you ever hit them up with a bubbly?
Oh, yeah. I always hit them up with a bubbly.
Nice.
Bubbles go with everything.
Is there some particular menu pairings?
Bubbles make you want to drink more and eat more. It's just the perfect complement to everything.
Yeah. Is there any pairings you can think of off the top of your head from the menu or something that you like paired with that bubbly?
I would probably recommend a Cava with we have this beautiful chicken and dumpling entree, and it's so like
perfect,
lemony and buttery, and I feel like the cava that we carry goes really well with it.
Couldn't agree more. And like we said, some of those characteristics, just the bubbles, the dryness. I mean, Zachary, what am I missing here?
I think fried foods is a huge one. Bubbles and anything fried, like French fries, fried chicken, tempura. If it's fried, bubbles and acidity are going to cut through it. It's perfect.
I mean, if you really want to be the talk of the party, bring a bucket of fried chicken and a bottle of cava. Now you're my people. That's what I'm talking about.
I'm there.
Absolutely.
It's going to be a neat night.
It's going to be a neat night. What about, we talked about cava, we've talked about champagne, we talked about sparkling whites. What about like those sparkling Blanc de Blancs you see, or sparklings from California? How are those different than, like the method champenois?
Oh, well, so they make a lot of different styles of wine in California. Some using the traditional champagne method, some using other methods. So it's actually really hard to generalize because it's also such a huge state. So there are all these different regions. But generally what I find is that you get a lot of that California sunshine in the wines. There's a lot of ripeness. You get richer fruit flavors. And they're really wonderful. Like, I think if you like California wines in general, you'll like California sparkling wines.
Yeah, absolutely. And you brought up those sparkling, like the rosé cavas. The color that comes in that comes from the skin, doesn't it, of the grape?
Yeah, exactly. So they're made just like any rosé, where it comes from the tannins, the pigments in the skins leaching into the wine. And some of them are so dark that they're almost like a sparkling red, which lends itself to some really cool food pairings.
Yeah, for sure. I also think that a lot of times you get these sparklers, and they can be great for cooking and making sauces or vinaigrettes as well. It's not just for drinking with dinner, but you can cook with them.
I've done it. Yeah, I mean, you're the chef, so you would know better than I would. But I'm not above pouring a little, champagne into a nice, buttercream sauce.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. I mean, do you guys cook with any champagne? I know you're not the chef, Chelsea, but I know Tom does some weird stuff sometimes. Does he ever throw in champagne in food over there?
He does. He definitely does some weird stuff. I don't order champagne for him to cook with, but that's not to say that he doesn't pull it off the draft line.
Well, hey, shout out to Chef Tom over there, because now I'm gonna feel like we're saying bad things. He's gonna text me, like, dude, what are you doing? When it comes to bubbles, I think one of the fun things I've seen these days, and Zachary, you can yell at me if you want, but I find them in cans now. You're seeing these not cocktails, but you're seeing like sparklers and wine almost put in cans to where it's like 2 drinks per can. And listen, there's one, I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but it's actually pretty darn good.
Oh yeah, I'm a big proponent of canned wines. Like, I recently did a roundup of recommended bottles and, well, not bottles and cans, wines and cans. Yeah, there's my prejudice, right? Thinking it has to be in a bottle, but no, like it just depends on the style of wine. Like, why not put it in a can if it's something that's just like bright and fresh and drinkable that you want to just kind of crush down? What better way to have it than the portability of a can?
Which leads kind of to my next question, because it's kind of like the backwards way to it. But I mean, champagne. How did it evolve, you think, from such a luxury drink to something that people who value, terroir and like small producers and things like that? How did that whole thing evolve?
Yeah, that's a huge question. It's a really good question. Something that I sort of spent my whole book trying to write and figure out. But where champagne is concerned, there's been this huge revolution in that region over the past 15 or 20 years called the grower movement. So basically, long story short, all these large champagne brands, the names that we know, like the Moëts, the Veuve Clicquots, these large houses would traditionally buy all of their grapes from across the region from farmers. And then they would, assemble their wines out of all those purchased grapes. But in the last few years, we now have this new generation of small, independent, often family owned and run wineries who are growing their own grapes. And rather than selling them to the champagne houses, they're making their own kind of farmer fizz, we call it. These artisanal, small quantity, handcrafted wines, often from a single village or a single vineyard, and they've really changed the conversation in this region. So we're now talking about things like terroir and regional expression. So yeah, that's really been a huge part of that evolution, I think.
Yeah, and terroir, just for those of you who maybe don't know what that means, terroir is just talking about the ground, the soil that the grapes are grown in that produce the wine. And it really does affect everything, whether it's, grown near salt water or whether there's a high, salt content in the ground. I mean, the earth makes a massive difference in how the grapes are grown and their flavor.
100%, yeah.
Well, listen, you guys, we got some time for some more calls, so give us a call here, 203-776-9677. We want to hear what you're drinking, celebrating the new year, getting ready for it. I'm excited for it. I'm finishing up my champagne cocktail right now. I don't know if I want to make another one. That might be a terrible idea. But coming up, we're going to talk about sparkling wines coming from some surprising places, like New York and Vermont. Have you tried a sparkler from Connecticut Winery? Well, we want to hear it. Give us a call, 203-776-9677. We want to chat with you. This is Seasoned. Welcome back to Seasoned. I'm Chef Plum. Marisol Castro is starting the new year early, so she's out today. So I'm in here by myself, cheersing myself in here in studio and being my own Foley man. I appreciate that. I hope some of you do as well. Looking forward to talking to you. We've got a few minutes to get some calls in, so give us a shout, 203-776-9677 or 203-776-WNPR if maybe you'd like to add letters to your phone numbers like we do here. This hour, I'm exploring the world of sparkling wine and sparkling cocktails with my guests Zachary Sussman and Chelsea Solkowski. Zachary is the author of Sparkling Wines for Modern Times, and Chelsea is the bar manager and bartender at the Charles, a beautiful restaurant in Old Wethersfield. Chelsea, I got to ask you a question when it comes to talking about sparkling wine cocktails versus sparkling wine. Do you find you're doing more actual bubbly in the restaurant or more cocktails in the restaurant?
We definitely produce a lot of cocktails. That's probably our top selling item. However, there's trends. So like different times of year, we sell different items. For some reason, this past week, I sold more sparkling rosé than I've sold all year.
Interesting.
It's unpredictable.
Well, so with that said, do you do any local wines or New York wines in there? Because you can get some great bubblies from the New York area down in the Hamptons or, the North Fork area.
I don't actually at the moment have very many local wines. We do have a lot of local spirit, local beer, but Chef Tom really likes that old world wine. So try and keep that man happy.
Got to keep him happy for sure. Zachary, what about you? Your thoughts on, sparklers that come a little more locally here in the New York area, Connecticut area?
Yeah, so, I'm actually from Connecticut. I grew up in Fairfield County, but I don't actually know that much about Connecticut wine. So I have to change that. That's my New Year's resolution. But I can say that there are some amazing wines in general and sparkling wines coming from both Long Island and the North Fork.
Yeah.
In the Champagne method, they have a cool climate similar to Champagne, so you get really great acidity in the wines. They're super high quality, and then the Finger Lakes area is just doing incredible stuff too. So highly recommend both of those regions for bubbles.
Yeah, I thought it was crazy when I was learning more about sparklers and bubblies that we think of France and Italy and Spain, but England is getting on the sparkling wine game and making some great stuff.
Yeah, it's wild. It's one of the most unexpected success stories in wine. But when you think about it, it actually makes a lot of sense. Because if you start off in Champagne and you follow the English Channel right over into England and you see those famous White Cliffs of Dover, that's actually the same shelf of limestone from Champagne that extends over into England. So the soil type is the same. And now, with global warming, it's warm enough to ripen grapes in the south of England. So they kind of have like all of the factors in place to make some really great sparkling wines, and they've had a lot of success with them.
What about places like Oregon and, like we mentioned New York State, but Oregon, it's up there as well.
Yeah. Honestly, like it's hard to find a place where they're making wine and not making sparkling wine. A place where they are not making sparkling wine if they're making wine. It's like a global phenomenon. Oregon's is on the bandwagon. They make amazing sparkling wines from like Pinot Noir. It's just incredible to see all of the different areas where sparkling wine is now being produced.
Is there an area that comes to mind for you that maybe people don't know about that they should check out?
Yeah, there are so many. Off the top of my head, Austria and Germany are making incredible wines from their grapes. There's a lot of sparkling Riesling that's like really good if you're an acid hound like me and you like that high acidity. That's a great place to go. Eastern Europe, there's really great wines from Hungary and from Czechoslovakia. It's hard to find a place where they aren't making really cool sparkling wines these days.
Yeah, it's kind of all over the place. Even Vermont, right?
Yeah, Vermont, they're doing it using like hybrid grapes because it's too cold to grow like, Chardonnay or Pinot Noir. So they're using crossings of the wild kind of indigenous North American grapes with, that are blended with the European strains that do well in the cold weather. So that's like this wild experiment that's happening up there. So it's just super exciting to watch that unfold.
I mean, I think some of those wines, too, you get from those colder climates are a lot of fun where you get those late harvest sparklers or, like a dessert wine even. Can you talk a little bit about those and just how we get that sweetness in there?
Oh, yeah. So there are a lot of different ways that you would get a sweet sparkling wine. Like the most famous ones that I'm thinking of are from like the north of Italy, like Moscato d'Asti. And often with those, they're actually made by stopping the fermentation early, so you get a lot of residual sugar left in the wine, so you get a sweet wine. And then you mentioned late harvest wines. So basically, that involves just letting the grapes ripen and ripen and ripen and ripen to the point where they're super concentrated, and there's a lot of sugar in the grapes that ends up in the final product.
Yeah, I mean, those are great. And you can get some of those wines, too, for not even that expensive anymore. That's the thing. I used to always think of these as being such expensive wines, but they're just not. You can find great wines for, that 15, 20, 12, 15, somewhere in that range, can't you?
100%. Yeah, like you can drink world-class, exceptional wines for $15 to $20, $25 at the most.
Is there a bottle or two you can think of off the top of your head that you would recommend to our listeners?
For value in particular?
Yeah, for sure, for value.
One, I always say Cava, but Portugal is making some really wonderful sparkling wines, specifically a region called Bairrada, which is in the central part of the country. They're similar to Cava, but, often made by small family estates. It's been this local tradition there. They drink those wines with their local suckling pig dish. It's pretty incredible. If you ever get a chance to go there, I highly recommend it. So Bairrada is definitely one of them. Those are great values. And then also still in Portugal, I love Vinho Verde. I don't know if you're familiar with those wines, but, they're from the north of the country.
Yeah.
Super zippy, fresh, delicious, like perfect by the pool.
Zippy is such a great word for that. That's a great idea. Even though, if you don't have a pool right now, maybe have a hot tub. It's great by the hot tub.
I was going to say, hot tub. Yeah, I realize it's not really pool season right now, but,
It's all right.
Dare to dream. Yeah.
So, Chelsea, what about you? Any kind of recommendations for people when it comes to, getting something nice to have at the house?
Wine doesn't really last very long at my house. So we tend to stock up on bottles in that range, $14, $15. I personally, I also buy Cava.
Yeah.
Cava's our go-to.
I think we're learning here on this episode that we should all be buying Cava right now because I think in 5 years it's going to be too expensive for us all because it's going to be so expensive. Now, listen, in Connecticut, it's not exactly the Champagne region of France or even an up-and-coming place like Long Island, but some of our local wineries are making sparkling wines, and of course we want to give them a shout-out. Places like Bishop's Orchard and Winery in Guilford, Chamard Vineyards in Clinton, which is a great spot. I've been there. Holmberg Orchards and Winery in Gales Ferry, Hopkins Vineyard in Warren, Jones Winery in Shelton. I mean, there's so many of them in our state. We got to support these guys and get out there and check them out because they're making some fun stuff as well. Sunset Meadow Vineyards in Goshen, Taylor Brook Winery in Woodstock. Listen, these are great places. Give us a call. We got a couple minutes left if you're interested. 203-776-9677 is the number to call, or 203-776-WNPR. So, Chelsea, as a person who works and, lives the restaurant lifestyle, coming up this time of year, not only with COVID and everything happening, but even just the New Year's Eve and New Year's and, it's going to be crazy. It's going to be busy. We really want to hope that everyone's nice and friendly and kind to staff and extra patient as we navigate, the second round of the pandemic. But kind of like a little bit of a PSA, we're hoping people will be aware and understanding about the supply chain issues, which I think are affecting so many restaurants in so many hard ways. Be able to go to the restaurant and get that Moa or that Clico may not always be as easy as it used to be, is it, Chelsea?
Absolutely not. So this year for New Year's Eve, there is zero stock for Moet and Clico. I can't bring it in. I can't find it.
Wow.
And
Anywhere.
Unfortunately, it's just not available to restaurants at the moment.
Wow.
Which, that's sad and frustrating, and it might break your tradition. But I think that there's so many options out there that maybe this year we try something new. And I know me personally, I'm really trying to give as many options as possible just so you can have something that you like for New Year's Eve. So
go for that cava, right? Now's the time.
Yeah, go for that cava.
Now's the time for sure. Zachary, have you heard a lot about this, about how some of these things are hard to get for restaurants now?
Oh yeah, it's all that anybody in the industry can talk about, especially with the holidays coming up and the champagne shortages. It's tough, but like Chelsea said, I think now's the time to experiment, especially when there's so many great options that are a little outside the box.
Yeah, and
you might find a new favorite.
You never know what you might find. And so just be nice to your restaurants. They're trying hard out there. They're doing the best that they can. Let's go to Laura in Southington. Laura, welcome to Season. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
We are getting ready to celebrate the new year, and better now that you're here. What you got for the show today?
You had mentioned Jones Winery in
Yes.
Shelton, and I just wanted to say that if anybody's looking for a fun sparkling wine that's a little different, they have a really nice strawberry sparkling wine.
Interesting. Wow. Hey, shout out for Jones right there. Thanks, Laura. We appreciate that. Hey, I got to ask you, Zachary, when it comes to fruit wines like that, what are your opinions on those? Because some of them are absolutely delicious.
Yeah, I wish I had more experience with them, to be honest. I love cider, but yeah, I've never had a strawberry wine, and I'm totally down to try it.
I think I remember them saying in wines class it wasn't actually a wine. It's a I don't know what they called it. Listen, I can't remember, but it's not actually a wine. Does that sound right?
That sounds right, because I guess wine has to be from grapes, but I don't know who makes those rules. Or just if we want to call them a wine, I guess we can call them a wine. But if it's fermented and made out of a fruit, I will drink it.
Nice, excellent. Let's go to Dawn in East Hartford. Dawn, welcome to Season. How are you today?
Doing okay.
So you have a question about an almond-flavored sparkler, yeah?
Yeah, I'm hoping maybe somebody might know about it. It was many years ago, and what I remember is it was mildly almond-flavored. When you swirled it in the glass, it left a nice coating on it, but it also had a very mild bubble to it.
Wow.
It wasn't overly sweet, so it was kind of a dessert wine, but it wasn't like sickly sweet.
Chelsea, I'm going to go to you on that. I'm not really sure if I can think of anything off the top of my head, but you might be the better person to ask about that one.
No, I'm thinking about that. I've never heard anything like that, but I am like a huge almond fan, so I would love to figure that out.
Yeah, that sounds great. What, Zachary, ring any bells there?
Not really. If it was a little sweet, unless it was like something that like some sparkling wine where a little amaretto was added. I can't imagine what it was, but I don't think that's what you're describing. So no, I'm stumped.
Yeah, that's kind of where my head was
I just did some Google here, and I found something called Weibel almond.
Weibel almond. Maybe that's it right there.
Weibel.
Chelsea, we have a very specific no research rule in this program. What are you doing? You can't do that.
I'm sorry.
Oh, listen. So I want to end the show on some really practical advice. Zachary's book ends with tips for serving sparkling wine like a pro. Zach, you want to throw a couple of those out for us?
Yeah. So first of all, the best way to enjoy your sparkling wine is whatever way you want to do it, whatever company you're with. So I hope everybody has fun and drinks something delicious. But if you want to enhance your enjoyment, I guess I do have a few tips. One, which we discussed before, would be, don't drink it too cold. Letting it warm up for maybe 10 or 15 minutes after you take it out of the fridge will help you get a better appreciation of all the underlying flavors and aromas. So that's one. Two, we talked about stemware. I always recommend using a regular wine glass for similar reasons. Those flutes are really pretty, but with a bigger bowl, you can really get your nose in there and really appreciate what you're tasting more. So those are two pieces of advice. But the biggest one is don't overthink it. It's New Year's Eve. Have fun. Be with the people you love and enjoy.
Yeah, 100%. I think those are great pieces of advice. Chelsea, you've opened thousands of bottles of wine in your career. Did we miss anything?
I would just say to have fun with whatever you're drinking. I mean, coming from a cocktail side of things, throw some stuff in there. Throw some ice in your sparkling wine and look around in your liquor cabinet. Don't be afraid of that old bottle that's dusty in the back. It might taste really good with that champagne.
Give it a try. Try some things out. Be experimental. It's fun. It's fun. Well, friends, I'm going to raise a glass to 2022. Here we go. Let's have a fantastic year. Do something nice for people. Buy a coffee for someone behind you. Buy a drink for someone at the bar randomly. Niceness is going to be the way to go in 2022 as we make our way and defeat COVID and get back to having cocktails and plenty of Moet and Clico all across the planet. That is the absolute plan, my friends. Absolutely. Sure. Big shout out and thanks to my guests, Zachary Sussman and Chelsea Solkowski. Zachary Sussman is the author of the brand new book, Sparkling Wine for Modern Times, A Drinker's Guide to the Freewheeling World of Bubbles. And Chelsea Solkowski is the bar manager and bartender of the Charles and Old Wethersfield. Stop by and see her. Thank you guys for joining us on the program. We really appreciated all your info.
Thank you.
And listen,
cheers. Thank you.
Absolutely. Happy New Year to you guys. Before we get out of here, our industry lost someone. Alyssa Gorman was the founder of New View PR. She worked tirelessly to help so many Connecticut restaurants tell their stories and stay connected with their customers. She passed away on Christmas. She was only 39 years old. Her enthusiasm was infectious, and all of us in the industry will miss her very, very much. Happy New Year to everybody. I look forward to seeing you guys next week and talking and telling more stories, and hopefully we'll have Marisol back, I think, if we can get through New Year's. Seasoned is produced by Robyn Doyon-Aitken and Catie Talarski. I'm Chef Plum. Thanks for listening, everyone. Happy and healthy New Year to all of you. See you next week.